Dopamine, Normani's highly anticipated, long-awaited first studio album that has been over 5 years in the making since she burst onto the scene with Motivation, her first single since going solo from girl group Fifth Harmony, finally arrived this summer, 2 weeks before her former Fifth Harmony counterpart, Camila Cabello's fourth studio album, C XOXO, dropped. And it flopped. Hard. Dopamine, that is. And C XOXO, but we're getting to that. According to Billboard 200, Dopamine debuted at number 91. Success on Billboard and how artists climb the chart are based on a few things. First, album sales, so both physical, like vinyls and CDs, and digital. Second, radio play, like if the artist's song is heavily requested and is in heavy rotation. And thirdly, online streaming, specifically in the US. I did intern at a radio station, Clear Channel Media, back in 2012, so I know a song being in heavy rotation is everything. The first week Dopamine was released, it sold 12,000 units. Some are blaming the delay of the project on her record label. Others are blaming the lack of proper marketing and promotion of the album. And they're not entirely wrong. People's interests have to be piqued enough to make them want to listen or buy an album the moment it drops. And that has to be done via marketing. The most common being music videos for a few songs on the album ahead of the album release. Only one track on Dopamine has a music video, Wild Side, which was released 4 years at this point prior to album release. Might as well have added Motivation to the album too, though Normani did mention that despite its commercial success, Motivation isn't her favorite song. The choreography in both videos, Motivation and Wild Side, are out of this world. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. What's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Yaira, better known as Simply Yaya. I am proudly African from Cameroon, born and bred. I worked for Disney for the better half of my young adult life, and more recently, Whole Foods. I am always working on leveling and glowing up, and I have a Master of Science in Journalism, which informs how I view and discuss some aspects of pop culture on this channel. In this video, I'm obviously finally delivering on my promise to review Dopamine and C XOXO. Not that you guys have been beating down my door or messaging me about it or anything. This is also obviously a double feature, not necessarily to save time, although it helps, but this is an obvious nod to Barbenheimer. Also, both ladies have some history, being part of Fifth Harmony and all, and their albums dropped the same month, 2 weeks apart from each other, as previously mentioned. Dopamine dropped on June 14th of last year, 2024, and Camilla's C XOXO was released on June 28th, so it just made sense in my head to review both albums in one video. So, Normani's numbers the first week her album dropped. 12,000 units. 12,000 units is a lot. At least to me it is. I mean, just visualize a room with 12,000 CDs and vinyls. That's plenty. But these days, if an artist isn't touching the 100,000 plus units range in sales the first week of the album dropping, then they're a flop, which is unfortunate and incredibly frustrating, because I personally thought this album was a great body of work, notwithstanding its 5-year delay and a couple of tracks that could have been left off the album. Speaking of tracks that could have been held and released as part of a deluxe or extended version of Dopamine, because they didn't exactly give me a Dopamine hit, Grip, 159, and Distance were those. Tracks number 8, 9, and 10. Don't jump on me in the comments, it's just my personal opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. Die-hard R&B listeners probably appreciated 159, just not me. And why is it even called 159? Is it 1:59 a.m. or $1.59? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, There was absolutely nothing wrong with those songs. Perfectly fine songs. In fact, 159 is giving Gone by NSYNC, and I liked that song back in the day. But when compared to all the other songs on the album, those 3 songs were just alright. Basic, even, dare I say, and they lined them up all together. One basic song after another. Now, the other songs each had an infectious and addictive element. With Big Boy, the intro alone let me know the song was about to be hot when the beat dropped. And then, those trumpets felt like a nod to motivation. That choreography for motivation will have me in the hospital if I tried it. Like, how complex do you want to get with this choreography, Normani? And her answer undoubtedly must have been yes, in all caps. The choreography for Big Boy would most likely be insane if she released a music video for it, but she probably won't, unfortunately. And I'm not sure why this wasn't a single. Sidebar, also those trumpets remind me of On My Mama by Victoria Monet, another music video with choreography that the Addison Rays and Charlie D'Amelio's on TikTok cannot replicate. Track 2, Still. She sampled Mike Jones's Still Tipping from 2004, but made it better. Can't go wrong with trap. And then she slowed down, reverbed that beat to close out the song. She really is that bitch. Not sure why this wasn't a single either. In my humble opinion, this track, Candy Paint and Big Boy, should have been the lead singles in addition to Wild Side. Side note, the beginning of this track reminds me very much of that of Ain't I by Young LA, Young Dro, and T.I. from 2008, which low-key sounds like it could be in a Halloween horror movie.
Still tipping on Bobo, wrapped in Bobo.
Third track, All Yours. It's the for me. Track number 4, Lights On. Normani had said in an interview that the song was inspired by Janet's Would You Mind, which I can totally see. But this song is equally very much giving Aaliyah, Rock the Boat. It's giving late 90s to 2000s hip-hop and R&B vibes. The whole album is a love letter to that era, which I think was the golden era of hip-hop and R&B. The era of the sexy tomboy, video vixen, and bling bling. You had to be there. Also, the lyrics from that era were freaky, but not uncouth, crass, and brash. Track 5, Take My Time. If Michael Jackson from his 2001 Invincible era and Ariana Grande were to collab, the result would sound a little bit like this song. Starts off 2000s R&B-ish and then turns into a category of dance music, which is fitting as Normani is a dancer, through and through. Track 6, Insomnia. Sounds like Chloe Bailey could have sang this song. It must be the harmonies. And that electric guitar in the middle of the song was a pleasant surprise. Talk about pouring kerosene on a fire. Also, the beginning reminds me of Brandy's Aphrodisiac. The and then the beat drops. Brandy is actually on the song, and it is produced by Victoria Monet, something I didn't know until I watched the Zach Sang Show podcast. That was the most informative and in-depth interview I've watched in regards to this project. I learned this fun fact about this song from this interview. Insomnia was the oldest song on the album. She had recorded it at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was a lot of back and forth with management about whether or not it should be on the album. Another interesting and impressive fact about the album that she mentioned on the Zach Sang Show podcast was that she recorded over 150 songs for this project alone. My mind was blown. My question now is, when she starts working on her sophomore album, do some of those songs make the cut, or does she record a whole bunch of other songs? I would really love to hear some of those songs on a deluxe or extended version of Dopamine, the way Taylor Swift releases older songs from the vault from previous projects. 5 stars for Zach for this interview. Track 7, Candy Paint. What else can I say? Banger. Reminds me of I'm Good by Black, which was featured in Honey with Jessica Alba from 2003. Track 11, Tantrums. The song takes an interesting turn with Blake's verse. Never heard of this artist until this song, but I get the feeling they are both on opposite spectrums of R&B, but managed to meet in the middle and blend well. When I say opposite ends of the spectrum of R&B, I mean Normani is obviously giving pop and hip-hop R&B vibes, and Blake is giving neo-soul alternative R&B vibes. Little Secrets. This is giving TG4, basically the girl group version of B2K. Again, that electric guitar elevated the track. This could easily be used as an outro soundtrack to a movie when the credits start to roll. And finally, track 13, Wild Side, an interpolation of Aaliyah's One in a Million. I'm visualizing Aaliyah watching down from heaven like a proud mom. Like I said, that choreography, the transitions, the angles in that video was top notch. The camera was moving with the beats at some point in the song. I heard somewhere that she funded that video with her own money. I'll post the clip if I find it. She should have gotten Music Video of the Year for this video. Just like I think Ray should have gotten Music Video of the Year for Genesis. If you haven't seen the videos, Wild Side and Genesis, please do yourself a favor and watch them. But I digress. Back to Dopamine. Cap all of the above with those crazy bass lines, you get hits. But without proper promotion and marketing, those hits cannot be official. People can't request to listen to what they don't know because, again, they haven't heard a teaser to pique your interest. When I say people, I mean people who aren't part of her core fans. People who may have listened to her in Fifth Harmony, but haven't been checking on her in her solo era. I understand Normani said she was going through some family stuff, hence the delay of the album. And thankfully, she said her parents are doing better now. They were diagnosed with cancer. I'm not sure what her contract with her label is looking like, but she may have to change labels, which may not be an easy or speedy process. Perhaps change management or just become independent because it's absolutely criminal that music this fire isn't reaching the masses. And there's only so much self-promotion a person can do. Might as well be independent if you're going to be promoting your own stuff. Using your own money for a music video. 91 on Billboard, she should at least have been in the top 20. Then again, she's a black woman, a dark-skinned black woman at that, so you know how that goes in the pop music space. It shouldn't matter, especially with all that talent, beauty, and swag, but we are where we are. Perhaps a collab with a bigger, more mainstream white artist could have helped, and not the usual suspects like Sam Smith, Robin Thicke, or Justin Timberlake. Because I don't know if I would consider James Blake mainstream. He seems more niche. Anyway, it works the other way around when a white artist needs some street cred and gets a black artist or two to collab with, like in Camila Cabello's case. I know she's not white, she's Latina, specifically Cuban Mexican American from Miami. But if she never told anyone her last name, the assumption would be that she's white. I thought Olivia Rodrigo was white for the longest, and then I thought she was of Spanish descent with that last name, only for me to find out she's half Filipina.
She got vision, she got vision, she got vision, bing, 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 she got vision, she got vision.
Anyway, on the album cover of C XOXO, Camilla's fourth studio album, she was sporting a new hair color she'd never sported before, at least not since she's been famous. Platinum blonde, tongue out, stained blue by the lollipop she's sucking on. I'll be honest, I haven't been following Camilla's career closely. I'm not a fan, but I'm familiar with a lot of her songs, and she does have some bangers. My personal faves are My Oh My with The Baby, OMG with Quavo from the Migos, Bad Things with MGK, Havana, Never Be the Same, Don't Go Yet, and Believe It or Not, I Love It with Playboy Cardi. Check out this video in which I briefly discussed the song and the music video when it was initially released last year. People were dragging her when the song came out. They were dragging her platinum blonde hair and saying she was trying to be like Charlie XCX, queen of hyperpop, and Rosalia, who both have dark hair, by the way. Honestly, the blonde hair didn't look as bad as people were saying it did, although it didn't particularly suit her. But she eventually caved and went back to her dark locks. Whether it's because people were being mean about it or she had gotten her fill of the blonde hair, we will never know. In my humble opinion, the hard launch of that platinum blonde hair was what created the confusion. She could have teased that look or the aesthetic of C XOXO starting at the tail end of Familia, the same way Olivia Rodrigo is doing. The color purple has been associated with Olivia's brand since her debut in 2021. The album cover of Sour, her first studio album, was a light shade of purple. By the second album, Guts, it was still purple, but darker. And bonus, a little bit of red in the lipstick here and then her bra in the album cover for the deluxe. She's also been having pops of red on her Guts tour, the most notable one being the red megaphone, but also some red outfits, but still incorporating the purple. As a result, Olivia stans have been speculating that the theme color of the next album, which may be due out later this year, what with the Guts tour being over, and her pattern thus far of releasing albums every other year, will be red. And if that's the case, it won't be quite as jarring because she eased her fans into it over a period of about a year. So it won't seem like the red is coming out of nowhere. Rihanna did the same. She debuted her dark era at the tail end of Good Girl Gone Bad with Disturbia and Rehab. That way, once her fourth album cycle, Rated R, came around and her looks and songs were darker and edgier, it made sense. We won't talk about the other thing that happened in 2009 that could equally have impacted the Rated R album. Taylor Swift debuted her pop era on Red with songs like I Knew You Were Trouble and We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together being the lead singles. That, in and of itself, was strategic. So a full-on pop album, 1989, was the natural next step for Taylor. Imagine Taylor going from Speak Now or Fearless straight to Reputation. I wouldn't have bought it because where is the progression? This is probably why Camilla's platinum blonde hair and new sounds didn't make sense to me initially. It sort of came out of nowhere to me, and I'm assuming most people who are familiar with her musical style. As far as the Rosalia comparison, the producers Camilla chose to work with for this project, El Guincho and Jasper, have worked with several artists in the past, including Rosalia. Rosalia and El Guincho actually have an extensive working relationship, and so you can see how the vibes would be similar. As for the Charlie XCX comparison, I'll admit, Camilla's snippet of I Love It, where she's in the car, looked awfully similar to Charlie's carefree party girl vibe here. But Charlie has written songs for Camilla in the past. And also, though Charlie is the undisputed hyperpop queen, she doesn't own the genre per se. Anyone is free to experiment with that genre if they want to. So though I am not a Camilla fan, and I did sense a bit of inauthenticity coming through with this new era look, the hate she received for that was completely unwarranted. Let her dye her hair whatever she wants. Shit, dye it blue, green, purple, it's her hair. She can do with it whatever she pleases. And if you hate it, too bad. Speaking of hate, it seems lots of people didn't like I Love It too much either. I didn't get it either upon first listen. It was just chaotic. But then it grew on me. It was meant to be chaotic because aren't we all a bit chaotic? None of us have it figured out. I still stand by the fact that I have no clue what Playboi Cardi was saying and why was he on the track? I saw her defending her choice to have him on the track somewhere.
There are some people online that say that they can't understand what he's saying in the song. Even when we were in the studio and he was freestyling these melodies, it's just as simple as it feels good. And it's funny, over time, we decode what he says and, you find oh, I love that bar and I love that lyric. But in the beginning, it's all about just if it feels good or not. And I think that's the most important thing about music is does it feel good or not?
Okay, girl, I must not be that hip because I don't get Playboy Cardi's appeal. And this is no shade towards him. I must not be his target audience, and that's okay. But that beat for I Love It goes hard, especially in the car. I cannot tell a lie. Speaking of collabs, for this album alone, she collaborated with not one, not two, but 6 black artists. Playboy Cardi, Lil Nas X, JT, Young Miami, aka Carisha, Pink Pantheress, and Drake. Well, some people may argue that Drake isn't black, but he ain't white either. Anyway, where am I going with this? Well, you may or may not remember the controversy of a few years back when she was caught casually using the N-word or reposting things with slurs on Tumblr. This is a story I'm sure she would love for us to forget, but the internet never forgets. There are plenty of videos covering this. I am not going to get into this in this video, but it had to be mentioned considering her collaborations, not just for this album, but over the years. And yeah, she's apologized and she says she's gone to therapy, and that's great, I guess. I will never knock anyone for trying to be better. However, I think this is the sort of thing that will follow her for the rest of her professional career. Unfortunately, some people may say, why does this keep being brought up? She was young when that happened. She was 15. And that's precisely my point. She was 15, not 8 or 9. I have watched some of her interviews about this album and she seems like a smart lady. So I don't think there could have been any misunderstanding the gravity of that word when she was 15. Speaking of misunderstanding, I think this album is highly misunderstood. How do you like that segue? I worked really hard at that. Anyway, before you click off this video, let me cook. I'm of the belief that I have to try things 3 times to decide whether I like it or not. This is just my thing. I am not saying everyone else should do the same, although I would encourage it if you can. Now, there's that rare case where trying something once is more than enough, and I don't need a second try to decide that I don't like it. And other times when I'm unsure about something, I try it 3 times. C XOXO was exactly like that. On my first listen, I was not feeling it, honestly. Halfway through, I didn't think I would finish listening to the whole thing. I was just confused about the direction of the album. I was also probably burned out from listening to a bunch of albums in order to review them. I'll link the playlist of my music reviews, which are mostly from last year. Check them out if you care. I gave C XOXO a second listen, half of it, not the entire album. Same thing, still confused. So I left it alone, then got back to it 8 months after the fact. And now I'm wondering if this was the same album I listened to earlier. It just hits different now and actually sounds better than I remember. It's like marinade on steak, let it sit for a bit before cooking it in order for all the flavors to get in there nicely. The third time listening to the album was definitely the charm. And then watching a few of Camilla's press tour interviews about the album really helped me gain new insights about the album. The Broken Record and the 45 podcasts were the best ones. They were both very candid, and she talked a bit about Cuba, where she was born, which she didn't get a chance to do in other interviews I watched. And it's not that I was forcing myself to like something I didn't like. When I'm listening to an album, especially one that I intend on reviewing, I just genuinely want to make an effort to understand where the artist, especially an artist of her caliber, is coming from and give the project a fair chance and not just dismiss it on first listen because I don't get it, you know? In fact, her description of the album in one interview really resonated with me.
I feel like this album is like this kind of mesh and juxtaposition of all those things. Like you have like, you know, Boat, which is like this Pitbull sample on this like piano, like auto-tuned ballad. And then you have like Dream Girls, which is like this 2000 sample over a reggaeton song. Like it has that tension and melting pot energy, which I feel like is like what my Miami upbringing has been like. Which is kind of like the upside of feeling like, I don't know, I don't really belong to one place. I belong to a few different places. And sometimes that's like a hard feeling. And then I feel like you can use it to your advantage too.
I really felt that because as an immigrant who has lived in different places here in the US, I feel like I belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Though the place I felt the most happy was in Florida, and I would move back there in a heartbeat with my mom. Camila also talked about what inspired the album. Miami, of course, where she grew up, inspired the album, but also the art she was consuming. She talked about reading a lot during this process, which really shows. She wrote all the songs on the album, no co-writers, and it's really quite brilliant. And I'll get to that shortly, but she says she was reading lots of Sally Rooney, who wrote Normal People. She read The Candy House, Bird by Bird. She was listening to a lot of rap as well, especially Drake. She said she's always done a lot of storytelling in her past albums, but for this one, she wanted to do a lot more showing, not telling. Basically, lots of flash cuts and snapshots and less linear stories. She said she was also watching a lot of Girls on HBO Max to capture a specific vibe for the album. I haven't seen it, but I can't imagine the concept of the show is any different from Fleabag or Euphoria. You know, navigating your late teens and or 20s in the West.
What were the forms of, what were you taking in, like, in the beginning stages of this album or throughout? Like,
oh
what
my
were you
gosh, I wrote it
listening
down on my iPad. Can I pull it out?
Please,
okay.
Yeah, incredible.
I brought my iPad because I was like, you know, if there's any podcast that I can nerd out and bring my trusty Patty,
please.
This is the iPad. I wrote down like some of the books and like some of the references and stuff. So these are the books that I read. Okay, so Joan Didion and the White Album.
Oh, that's a great book.
Great book, right? Candy House, Jennifer Egan. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. Did you ever read that? It's about writing.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I don't know it.
Bird by Bird. My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka.
Wow, you're reading some Kafka.
I was reading some classics, but I was mostly reading. I was reading a lot of Sally Rooney. I was reading a lot of books by girls going through things in their 20s because I was like, I just loved the like inner dialogue, and I wanted to have.
Hence Joan Didion at like
Hence
number
Joan
one.
Didion, exactly.
The lyricism on this album is top tier. It really comes through on Chanel No. 5, Godspeed, and June Gloom. Chanel No. 5 and all these Japanese references, some of which I had to look up. I believe she said it was the first song she wrote, and it was the centerpiece of the album. And from there, everything else grew. She had said there's a line in the song inspired by Drake and Meek Mill's Going Bad.
I'm just writing on my wrongs. I just put a Richard on the card.
June Gloom closes out the album and reminds me of Rihanna's We Found Love. You know someone's toxic for you, but you keep going back for more until everything comes crashing down. I love the imagery in this one. And then there's Godspeed, which closes out the extended version of the album, which is the Magic City edition. Magic City as in the casino in Miami, I'm assuming. Other standouts on the album are Hot Uptown featuring Drake, Dreamgirls, Boat, Come Show Me, and Dade County Dreaming. Hot Uptown is quintessentially Drake. A lot of his songs have the Caribbean soca dancehall influence, or more specifically, One Dance from 2016. Then we have Dreamgirls, which is an interpolation and or homage to the song Shorty's the Shit by The Dream from the late 2000s. She's obviously made it her own by turning it into reggaeton. I love that Dreamgirls is hyphenated, because The Dream is equally hyphenated. It's the attention to detail for me. BOAT is an acronym for Best of All Time, and it has a sample of Mr. 305, Pitbull's hotel room service. 305 is obviously the Miami area code, and Pitbull's Cuban American as well. It's an interesting juxtaposition, this song. Hotel room service is a party hype song, and BOAT is an emo ballad. Come Show Me is very Afrobeats and reminds me very much of Am I Wrong by Nico and Vince from 2013, 2014-ish. Dade County Dreaming features the City Girls, who are also from Miami, which is in Dade County. I lived in Orange County when I lived in Florida. It's the Orlando area, in case you're wondering. My favorites on the album, in order of most favorite to regular favorites, are Chanel No. 5, I Love It, Pretty When I Cry, Pink XOXO, Godspeed, Hot Uptown, and Boat. I liked the melody of 20 somethings. Very indie, but I wasn't too crazy about the way she sang it. It almost sounded auto-tuney, and for an indie song, it made me uneasy. She doesn't need auto-tune. She can sing, but I get it. It does go with the carefree party girl spring break alternative vibe of the album. Dade County Dreaming is cool too. I like the piano at the end there. Reminds me of Alicia Keys' If I Ain't Got You.
City girls out shopping, real Miami girls club hopping. Got a high-rise view on Garden.
One thing I'm a bit curious about is her support for Drake at this point. Her promotion and press tour for her album was just as the Kendrick and Drake beef was starting. She had a lot of praise for Drake in a lot of her interviews then, since she was listening to a lot of his songs while writing this album, and he is featured on 2 songs on the album. In fact, one of the songs is just a straight up Drake track, like it's a throwaway from one of his albums or something. This album is a bit ahead of its time. Give it a couple of years, people will get it eventually. Debuting at number 13 on Billboard 200 isn't terrible. It's not top 10, but it's a great body of work, in my opinion. People are so number obsessed these days, and it's unfortunate that an artist's numbers, whether it's streams on Spotify, number of units sold, or where they rank on Billboard, within the first week of the album drop determines whether they are successful or not. I mean, can we let the album breathe a little for like a month after its release before we start releasing numbers? It's the same for movies. They have to make a killing within the first weekend of release in order for them to do quote unquote well. And that isn't exactly conducive to great work. All of that being said, I'm still not a fan of Camilla's. I can acknowledge the brilliance of this body of work nearly a year after its release and acknowledge that I enjoyed a few of the interviews discussing this project, but I'm not vibing with her. I never have, and that's okay. If you liked this video, you'll love this one. Watch it next, and I'll see you next week with a Sabrina Carpenter video, and then we'll do Miley Cyrus next. Her album is due out in May.